Hello, this is my video for week 5 for multicultural perspectives. Um, I wanted to start out with kind of addressing the Purnell, that kind of Purnell model. It's pretty interesting. It's not very long or very intense, but it points out a lot of different factors that can make up a unique perspective for a person or a cultural practice of people that they kind of perceive as the way that they go about doing things. There are a lot of things on there that maybe I wouldn't even consider, with death practices or, birthing practices. So I thought that was pretty neat. Um, it's just even kind of more to think about. So maybe if you're thinking about, working with a patient who may be pregnant, for instance, beyond kind of some of the contraindications for pregnancy, just kind of even thinking about what does this person, believe the whole, coming to term and carrying a child, what does that mean to them, and what might make them feel uncomfortable if I'm working with them or, around the time of the child's birth. So it's just some more, nuances to think about. And, those are good things because they can help build a stronger patient, alliance and therapeutic alliance. So that's good stuff. And I, I also have to say, I really enjoyed the TED Talk, where he kind of talked about, all right, we're going to, in the speaker's hypothetical situation, we're going to all go at this elderly couple's home at 8 a.m. and, rake their lawn for them. It's pretty interesting where, we have, 50 kids, but they all kind of perceive that instruction differently based on their personality type. In his instance, he kind of talked about the personality colors. But again, it kind of just goes to show that in general, even if we think we're giving a clear message, people are going to interpret it the way that, essentially their brain's been wired to interpret things. So I think that goes to show with communication, honestly, I would think that, saying, hey, I'd show up at 8 a.m. is pretty well defined, that maybe that isn't the case for some people. Maybe kind of even explain things more specifically, make sure we're all on the same page when we're communicating with, whoever, and maybe even just be more adaptive to, sometimes people perceive things differently. And that's not necessarily a wrong thing. It's just something that we can all kind of grow with and, adapt to, nicely kind of put. And a lot of my patients, they like to show up late, so I definitely could kind of feel that perspective where you say, hey, show up at this time, but they kind of show up habitually 20-30 minutes after that, and you just kind of adapt to that, know that's just them. So of course, you try to talk about why it's important to show up on time, to try to keep things being too busy in the clinic, but you also be willing, hey, that's just who they are, type of thing. So you have to find even ground on that. And then kind of in our scenario for the discussion board, where the therapist, may have said some things that were kind of microaggressions or just kind of even more rude than anything toward the patient, where they, their unkept hair, being kind of berating as to why they may or may not be taking their medications, making, kind of out of place comments about the insurance that they're on, kind of all leading to a culminating factor that this patient, maybe because of the race, because of their socioeconomic standing, that they might be perceived as less than in the therapist's eyes. And that's a tricky situation. I find that sometimes people like to get locked in their ideas. And the clinic I'm at now, we work with a lot of very low socioeconomic patients. And sometimes even some of the therapists there, they're kind of like, oh, that's just how they are. They show up late. And I don't think that's always the best way to go about things. I do think that everyone does a nice job, especially at my clinic, of trying to reach out and understand, what's going on with people, which is kind of a step that was missing in our patient scenario. And it kind of reminds me of what, Jordan said in his comments, on his discussion. Not that they're wrong, but where, he observed it and he didn't think there's anything legally wrong, so he kind of wouldn't really address it. which I don't really necessarily agree with either. You know, if I ever have a concern, or even at my own clinic, if I'm kind of unsure how they're talking to you, or like what's going on with the patient, just try to get like in a polite way ask, you know, what's going on, or you know, why do you think that? Try and make it more like I'm trying to learn than anything. I think that is probably the best way to go about, you know, handling those situations, instead of trying to be accusatory and not just letting things go by, but trying to make it seem like you're trying to learn, and hopefully through you learning can help, you know, the person that you're discussing with also learn. So I see I'm running low on time. Definitely have a lot more to say, but thanks for sticking with me. Bye.